Think about it. You've seen lots of people who were exceptional people, even superstars. Have they had a life of easy living? In some cases, they appear to be, but on the inside, they often have a tendency just to trip over their pride and their accomplishments and fall flat on their faces. And because of that, they're really not the best role models for those of us who want to be disciples of Christ. It's better for us to be average, I would say, than strive to be exceptional. Because ordinary people, we as ordinary people can move through life with humility and be able to accomplish some truly extraordinary things. And let's face it, trying to be exceptional is not an easy task. In fact, a lot of times trying to be exceptional can just actually cause us to be unhappy. There's a man named Lyndon Duke, and he actually studied suicide. And in his studies, he found that when people try to be extraordinary, when they try to reach above and beyond, they, or almost all of them, fail. They end up feeling like losers, like they're not good enough, they're not special enough, they're not rich enough, and they're not happy enough. And the result of trying so hard to be exceptional, or even someone they're not, is a life of unhappiness. A life of never truly being happy with what you have. Therefore, there's got to be a better way than that, right? And fortunately for us, Jesus gives us one. He gives us a life of humility, a life of being happy with what we have. Mr. Duke actually really understood that himself. He was moping around his house one day, feeling very unhappy and sorry for himself, when all of a sudden he began to hear his neighbor, who was out there mowing his yard, and he was singing at the top of his lungs. And at that point, Mr. Duke was able to realize at that point that he needed to stop trying to exalt himself and just accept the simple, ordinary life that he had, and that his family had been given. The truth is, folks, if you focus on an ordinary life, the cumulative effect of all of those average days is quite extraordinary. Think about it. Parents, if you spend 1 hour a day with your children, that adds up to 90 hours in the course of 3 months. And then 1,800 hours over the course of 5 years. Can't you just imagine what kind of investment and what kind of impact that investment has made? 100 hours of writing over a 3-month period is enough time to complete a book. And at that rate, you could write 2 books, maybe even some poetry, and have a screenplay in there. You can do that in just a year. Those of you who are in sales, if you strive to talk to 100 new people every month, surely you're going to get some new business out of that. It's the little steps that add up, the little steps we take. And serving others produces overwhelming results. Those who humble themselves will be exalted. Nowhere does Jesus say, though, that we're supposed to be a doormat, that we're supposed to let people walk all over us, okay? He's not suggesting that we should subject ourselves to abuse either. He's simply saying we should turn away from arrogance and turn toward humility. Be a student, be a disciple of the Messiah, a humble servant. And it's through a life of ordinary service that we can accomplish extraordinary things. Wherever we are on that big old socioeconomic spectrum, the words of Jesus are going to ring true. All who exalt themselves will be humbled, and all who humble themselves will be exalted. Now, the passage gives us 3 things that we ought to do. 3 steps to climb to the height of humility in our lives. And Jesus shared those with us in these 12 verses. First, he says, we've got to practice what we teach. got to practice what we teach. He observed that the Pharisees were hypocrites, saying one thing and then doing another. If we're going to be humble servants of Christ, and if we're going to have a positive impact on the world, we need to make sure that our deeds are in line with our words. That's especially true when we work with children. Whether we work with them here at church, or at home, or at school, it doesn't work to say, do as I say, not as I do. It's also true that wherever we are, us humble servants of Christ, there are always people watching us to see if our deeds match our words, to see if we're people of integrity that show consistency between what we do and what we say. Secondly, we need to offer a helping hand. We saw in the scriptures how it described that the Pharisees laid burdens on the shoulders of others, but they themselves were unwilling to lift a finger to move them. When people are in need, it is critical for us to go beyond giving advice. We need to lend a hand. I don't think we would be very effective if we stood on the deck of a swimming pool or out a deck in the lake, and we shouted out instructions to someone to swim harder, pedal faster to try to keep from drowning, instead of lending them a hand. Lastly, it's very simple. We've got to focus on God. The Pharisees were more interested in making an impression on people than having a relationship with God. They were more excited over their seats in the synagogue, their fringes on their garments, and what those phylacteries could do for them. All of those things, though, lost their value when they're designed to exalt a person. Jesus recommends to his followers in Matthew 6, verses 5 and 6, that whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Worship is all about connecting with God, not impressing other people. Remembering these things will help you live a humble life, one in which the ordinary becomes extraordinary. 3 simple things. Practice what you teach. Lend a helping hand. Focus on God. They sound really simple, don't they? Really simple. And they're very significant. And they lie at the heart of any life that's going to make a positive difference in the world. If you focus on living an ordinary life, which I think most of us live most every day, the cumulative effect of living those many average days is going to be extraordinary. And what I would ask of you today is to go out and live an ordinary life.